I had exactly 72 hours to leave my own land. That's what the bright orange notice nailed to my ranch gate said. And the craziest part, the woman who ordered me out, Olivia Adams, the HOA president in a pink power suit, was standing there smiling like she'd just conquered a small country. She had no idea that the next morning 300 Marines would surround her house, and that she'd triggered a war she couldn't possibly win. I didn't plan on becoming the center of a suburban circus. Truth is, all I wanted was peace. After 40 years in the Marine Corps sandstorms, night ops, and chaos, I still hear when the world gets too quiet. I bought this ranch, built it up board by board, and turned it into the one place where the wind and the horses talked louder than people. For 20 years, this land was mine legally, spiritually, every way that mattered. No HOA, no rules, just open country and the sound of Ginger's hooves at sunset. That peace lasted until Silver Creek Estates grew like an invasive species on the ridge. Perfect lawns matching mailboxes, identical shutters. Everything a little too symmetrical, like a neighborhood built from a catalog. And with it came the HOA bright brochures, stricter rules, and a president who thought a clipboard made her queen of the county. My first notice arrived without postage, slid under my gate like a ransom letter. It claimed my barn wasn't aesthetic. My fence disrupted uniformity, and my favorite, my American flag, was non-standard in proportion. I laughed, tossed it into a folder I labeled comedy material. Then I called the HOA office. A cheerful voice told me the president would look into my case, and a week later, Olivia herself marched up my driveway. Heels clicking, sunglasses bigger than her ego, clipboard tucked under her arm like she was issuing battlefield orders. "Good morning," she chirped, sugary but tight. "I'm here regarding your violations." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "You must be Olivia. I heard you're running the—" "Correction," she snapped. "I am the HOA president, and your ranch is out of compliance with our community aesthetic." "Ma'am," I said gently, "this ranch predates your community." She smiled, sharp, thin, confident. "Boundaries can change." That was the moment I knew this wasn't about grass height or paint color. This was about control. And people who crave control always come back for more. For weeks after that, the letters kept coming, each one more ridiculous than the last. Violation for visible equipment. Violation for reflective metal. Violation for having a barn that looked like, well, a barn. Then the drones arrived, little buzzing annoyances hovering over my horses like metallic mosquitoes. And one afternoon, I caught 2 HOA landscapers with a laser meter trying to measure my fence line. They bolted the second Daisy, my old shepherd, started barking. So I decided to walk into the lion's den. The HOA meeting was held in a fancy new clubhouse, marble floors, chandeliers, artificial citrus smell pumped through the vents. 20 residents sat in rows like students terrified of failing an exam. Olivia stood at the podium, voice dripping authority as she recited violations. When she reached jurisdiction expansion, I raised my hand. "I'd like to address that item," I said. She stiffened. "This isn't the place for—" "With respect, ma'am, you sent these letters to my ranch. This became my business." Murmurs. Some people hid smiles. Others stared at their laps. I placed my deed and federal land grant on the table. This ranch was purchased under the Veterans Land Grant Act. It is sovereign property. Your charter doesn't cover it. Olivia didn't even look down. "You can wave your military papers all you want, Colonel. Around here we follow HOA law." I tilted my head. Funny. I must have missed that amendment in the Constitution. The room cracked up. Her face turned red as a stop sign. She banged her gavel and ended the meeting early. I knew then she'd escalate. I just didn't know how far. The answer came one morning at sunrise, a bright orange envelope nailed to my gate like some Wild West challenge. Notice to vacate 72 hours. 6 stapled pages, fabricated zoning changes, bogus bylaws, threats of fines, even a warning of forced removal. I read the entire thing twice. No anger, just focus. The type of calm that settles in your bones before a mission. But even calm has its limits. That night I sat on the porch, staring at the hills, listening to the horses shift in the paddock. For the first time since this mess started, I felt something. I hate admitting doubt. What if I was making things worse? What if standing my ground turned me into the villain in someone else's eyes? What if the peace I was fighting for was the very thing I was burning down? For a moment I actually thought about ignoring everything, letting her win, letting the storm pass. But then I saw the folded American flag hanging on my porch, the one I'd carried across continents, and something in me snapped into place. I'd spent decades defending land that wasn't mine. I sure as hell wasn't going to surrender land that was. The next morning, 2 HOA compliance officers showed up in a white SUV. They tried to step past my property line. I pointed to the dirt post marking my boundary and said calmly, "Cross that line and the sheriff will be here before you can spell HOA." They left quickly. By noon, Deputy Morales visited. Good man, straight shooter. He reviewed my documents, nodded, and said, "Colonel, you're clean. She's overstepping." He left, shaking his head and muttering something about paperwork warriors. But the real turning point came that night. Sam, my neighbor, texted me. "She's posting your eviction on the HOA app, calls a special meeting tonight, says you're defiant." Defiant. That word tickled something in me. People forget Marines don't escalate, we clarify. That evening at the clubhouse, Olivia tried to make a spectacle of me. Cameras on, residents quiet. She demanded I repaint my barns, remove my signs, lower my fences, submit to her rules, or walk away forever. I said one word no. Then I added, "Tomorrow morning I'll be conducting a lawful, pre-approved activity near Silver Creek. It'll be organized, respectful, and entirely within my rights." A few people whispered, "Construction." Olivia narrowed her eyes at me, trying to read a map she'd never been trained to understand. I left the meeting and made 3 phone calls. The sheriff, the county clerk, and a logistics contact at the nearest Marine Corps base. "Colonel Turner," the voice on the other end said, surprised. "How many bodies you thinking?" Enough, I told him to make the point. Sun rose fast the next morning, slicing across the valley like a clean blade. By the time I stepped onto my porch with a thermos of coffee, the rumble had already started. Engines, boots, radios crackling. 300 Marines, not soldiers with weapons, not a threat, but a fully authorized logistics drill, legal coordinated, and impossible for an HOA president to stop. From the ridge it looked like a convoy rolling into a movie set. Humvees, trucks, comm tents, navigation posts. They lined the public right-of-way, never trespassing by an inch. Kids on bikes waved, Marines waved back. And then Olivia walked out of her house. Pink blazer, hair perfect, eyes wide with panic. "What? What is this?" she shrieked. Jake, an old Marine buddy, smiled politely. "Training exercise, ma'am, authorized by the county and state. You can't bring tanks into a neighborhood. Those are Humvees, ma'am." She started screaming about sovereignty, HOA jurisdiction, civilian endangerment. A news drone hovered above, recording everything. Olivia realized she was going viral in real time, and that only made her louder. By mid-morning, the Marines were cleaning ditches, repainting faded road markings, trimming overgrown hedges, stuff the HOA had neglected for years. The neighborhood looked better than ever, except for Olivia, who ran around yelling at anyone who'd listen, which was no one. Then county inspectors arrived, clipboards, cameras, official badges. They cited the HOA for false maintenance reports, improper drainage, unapproved modifications. Even Olivia's own decorative gate violated codes she'd forced on others. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "Karma works fast these days." The next day, her meltdown went nuclear. News vans returned. Residents gathered. Olivia stood in her driveway screaming about conspiracies. She accused me of colluding with the Marines, the county, the media, maybe even the weather. Then her sprinkler system burst, spraying thick brown sludge all over her perfect blazer. The crowd erupted. Reporters caught every second. A Marine shouted, "Looks like your irrigation lines are clogged," and that my friends was the beginning of the end. The county soon arrived with boxes and warrants. They removed HOA documents, receipts, files. An emergency meeting was held that evening. Residents who'd been silent for years finally spoke. Harold, the timid vice president, looked Olivia in the eye and said, "We're tired of everything being a war." By vote unanimous, she was removed as HOA president. She stormed out soaked in mud and rage, shouting threats into the wind. But nobody followed her. Nobody defended her. Nobody even looked her way. And just like that, the Queen of Silver Creek lost her crown. Her house sat dark that night. Mine didn't. But I didn't celebrate, didn't raise a glass, didn't smile in victory. I just stood on my porch listening to the quiet feeling the weight lift off the land I loved and knowing the war was finally over. Some battles aren't won by force. They're won by knowing your boundaries and refusing to surrender them.